Hello, I'm Allison Lingane, one of the co-founders of Project Equity. We help businesses and communities discover the power of employee ownership. Employee ownership is a valuable option for business owners going through succession planning or wanting to sell their business. Our nonprofit mission is to foster economic resiliency within communities by demonstrating and replicating strategies to increase employee ownership. We drive employee ownership transitions of small and medium-sized enterprises in order to sustain and foster high-quality jobs, workers' voice and agency, professional development, and community wealth building, all while honoring the selling business owner's legacy. Thank you for joining this webinar, which we put together for the City of Berkeley staff and officials to provide an overview of business retention through employee ownership. Project Equity has been contracted by the city to help businesses in Berkeley stay strong and in our community. I will be going over why employee ownership is a strong option, the different types of employee ownership, how local businesses and quality jobs can be retained through this strategy, how the transition works, and how to guide a business to take the first steps. The City of Berkeley, as other communities across the country, is facing a risk of losing long-standing businesses as baby boomers retire. Nationwide, boomers own an estimated 1 out of every 2 local employers. But this risk also offers an opportunity to retain those businesses and their jobs, to create a path to business ownership for their employees. Local businesses are a part of the fiber that makes Berkeley so special. As Berkeley businesses age, providing formal services to support local business owners with succession planning will continue to grow and become more important. This is Tom Adams and George Chittenden. They founded a thriving manufacturing business in West Berkeley, one that is quite specialized. And they realized that if they sold their business, they'd mostly be selling only their client list. And likely, the business they built up over decades would disappear, and the employees who depend on them for their livelihoods would be out of work. So, they have transitioned to a worker-owned cooperative to maintain their legacy. Let's talk about the succession options that business owners have. Selling to family can be a great option, but it's usually off the table because the kids don't want to take over. Acquisition can be a strategy if there's a buyer in the wings. The question is, what will the acquirer do to the business? One of our clients had an experience 20 years ago when she sold another bakery she had founded on the East Coast in preparation for a move to California. She was devastated when it closed down about 18 months after the sale. After founding another bakery in California, she created a transition plan that included employee ownership in order to avoid that outcome. Obviously, closing the business down has a tremendously negative impact on the community and on employees. So employee ownership really delivers on the community's priorities and on the business owner's priorities. As a business owner, it provides me market value when I sell, preserves the legacy that I built, it optimizes the tax benefits of my sale, and retains my employees, customers, and key vendors. This work of retaining a thriving local business community sits within another critical context for our communities, the racial wealth gap. This gap has only worsened over the last 15 to 20 years. The average wealth of Black families in the United States dropped by half in that time period. And in 2017, only 43% of Black families own their own homes, compared to 72% of white families. The median net worth of white families is nearly 10 times that of Black families. By creating access to equity and wealth through employee ownership, we can grow good jobs and address the wealth gap. And we can keep good businesses thriving and rooted in our community. So, what do we mean when we talk about employee ownership? There's more than one form of employee ownership that Berkeley businesses can take advantage of. And when we talk about employee ownership, we mean what's called broad-based employee ownership, in which all of the eligible employees have access to become owners. And the two most common forms are ESOPs, or employee stock ownership plans, and worker cooperatives. Employee stock ownership plans, or ESOPs, are qualified retirement plans in the same way that a 401k is. And they're used to transfer all or part of the company's shares to a trust that is then administered on behalf of the employees. ESOPs have tremendous tax benefits to the seller, to the business, and to the employees. Now, the federal government doesn't give tax benefits away without also putting regulation in place. So ESOPs are also highly regulated. They're part of a defined contribution employee benefit plan designed to invest in the stock of the sponsoring employer. As a result of this regulation, they are more expensive. They've got higher setup costs and ongoing administrative costs. And so the key is that so long as the business is bigger than a minimum size threshold, the tax benefits greatly outweigh these higher costs. So ESOPs are size dependent, generally advisable for companies with more than 20 to 40 employees or a floor of $2 million in revenue. And one of the characteristics of an ESOP, so I've referred to them as a retirement plan. So employees don't pay for their shares of company stock. Instead, those shares are gifted as a retirement benefit. Now, worker-owned cooperatives are 100% employee-owned. ESOPs can own a portion or all the way up to all of the company stock, but in a worker-owned cooperative, each employee owner has one voting share in the company. It's often referred to as one worker, one vote. And one of the key components of a worker co-op is that it is a democratic workplace. So each employee owner's one share is used to elect the board of directors and to vote on major strategic decisions as defined in the bylaws, and employee owners make up the majority of the board. Profit sharing is built into a worker co-op, and employee owners earn a profit share based on the number of hours worked. So a full-time employee owner would earn about double the profit sharing of a half-time employee owner. There are many tax benefits of worker co-ops, but not as tax beneficial as ESOPs. And so they don't have as much regulation, and so therefore have lower setup and ongoing administrative costs. In a worker co-op, employees do pay a small equity buy-in, emphasis on small. The equity buy-in is typically under 5% of the sale price, sometimes as high as 10%. And worker co-ops are appropriate for companies of any size, from very small, sort of 10 employees, all the way up to hundreds and hundreds of employees. Employee ownership brings tremendous benefits to the workforce. According to a 2017 study by the National Center for Employee Ownership, employee owners earn about a third again as much as their non-owner peers within their industry. Their jobs are more stable. They stay half again as long. And their assets, as measured by household net worth, are nearly twice as high. Think about the impact that can have on addressing the racial wealth gap. And more than 100 studies link employee ownership to better productivity, pay, job stability, and firm survival. A report by the Cass Business School in London found that employee-owned enterprises reported productivity levels that were 9 to 19% higher than those in traditionally structured similar businesses. And the NCEO found that sales and employment grew 2% faster year after year after year in companies after employee ownership is introduced. Okay, so how does this all work? At a very high level, just conceptually, an owner sells the business or its assets or its stock to a new employee-owned business. The owner can stay on as general manager or in a new role, or can transition out operationally. If the form is a worker-owned co-op, the existing owner sells the business or transitions the existing business structure into a newly formed employee-owned worker co-op. If the form is an ESOP, the owner sells the company shares to a trust that owns those shares on behalf of the employees. The sale is typically financed by debt. And either way, the new employee-owned company pays down the financing out of future profits. So in essence, the employees are buying the business out of the future profits that their labor creates. Now, usually businesses need a loan to cover this debt financing. Project Equity can assist in that process through its initiative called Accelerate Employee Ownership, which is a partnership with a long-established lending institution, Shared Capital. Okay, let's talk about what businesses are a good fit for employee ownership. The best candidates are existing companies that are number one in good financial health. So this is not a strategy for saving a failing business. This means that the company has 3 to 5 years of profit. Number 2, it's a minimum size threshold of about 10 employees. And number 3, the business has a proven history of success within their management system and operations. The City of Berkeley is dedicated to keeping local businesses alive and thriving. The Economic Development Team helps businesses in all of their life cycle stages. And Project Equity is here to help well-established companies with succession planning and when the time comes with an ownership transition. You can refer businesses to project-equity.org for a free consultation. Thank you so much. We're so very pleased to be partnering with the City of Berkeley to support a thriving local business community.